So we have here Kunghanji, Seith Fourmile. He's been learning the traditional way of his people from the day he could walk. His mother taught him the Kunghanji ways, and his father and grandparents taught him the ways of the Yidinji people. They taught him the stories which connected the plants to the wildlife and the wildlife to the land. So I'm personally very much looking forward to this talk, and I hope you feel the same way. So I might just hand it over to Kunghanji then.
I'm going to sit down. I'll tell you the reason why I'm sitting down as well. But I'd just like to say welcome as well. But in here in Bangladesh, geography to allow me to speak on country. But in my language, just for me to talk here as well. Just English is actually my fifth language, so just so you know, I speak mainly all my languages. My dad's language, which is Yidinji, my mother's language, which is Kunghanji, my grandmother's language, one of my grandmothers on my mom's side is called Yidinji, and on my dad's side it's called Keynote. So English is my fifth language. Apart from that, but in regards to myself, Jazz just said, gave me a little bit snippet of myself and what I've been doing. About 2.5 years, about 2 years ago now, I had a stroke. Okay, and that's the reason why I walk with the cane. I actually had a blood vessel burst in my brain, so I had a brain hemorrhage. And one of the doctors actually said to me that Western foods are killing you, and Western foods are killing your people. And all my life I was brought up with bush foods and eating bush foods, but then you get out of that lifestyle and you think everything like McDonald's, KFC, all those ones are better to eat than your own traditional foods. So I had a big learning curve that actually took me back to going back to eating my traditional bush foods and my traditional foods, and was wondering what I was going to do in this lifetime, given that I was given a second chance. And so myself and my partner, who was Irish, we met some 14 years ago and then reconnected again about 6 years ago. And she's a Western trained ecologist, and I'm a traditional trained ecologist. She had 4 years of training in an institute, but in regards to global environments. I've had 45 years of my own traditional or tribal ecology within my area, which is Cairns. Traditional name is Keynote. And in that learning, I learned about my environment through my father and through my grandfather. And at that point in time, my father had like 80 years of knowledge, and my grandfather had about 90 years. But all collectively, the knowledge that was passed down to me is a collective of about 40 to 70,000 years knowledge about our environment. Just in regards to that, I had my DNA tested for a National Geographic film that was Journey of Man. And they checked my DNA and tested it, and so my blood sample, my DNA sample was 70,000 years old. So I look quite young for 70,000 years. But I suppose in regards to the environment, I started looking at our environment in today within a modern, I suppose, more modern lifestyle. Hence the name Abriculture. And the term agriculture is different from agriculture. And as per the slide up there, it's native, planting natives. But in regards to agriculture, agriculture is more to do with land clearing and getting rid of whatever is there and then planting foods on the environment that you've just destroyed, in a sense. Abriculture is replanting bushfoods and natives in its natural environment, so in its virgin state. So I'm gonna click, so if you see my arm moving around here a little bit, it's not because I'm getting jiggy with you or anything like that. Okay, just in regards to it, the techniques, like I was saying, deals with how our food grows in our environment. And as I grew up within my rainforest environment, which is this environment here. The tree that you see there is the Keynote tree, or a slippery blue fig tree. And we utilize that tree for a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons is the large buttress roots there is we make shields out of that. The actual bark on it, we actually strip the tree, but we don't strip it so that the bark kills the tree. The tree is left to live on, and we use the tree bark for a blanket. The fruit, which is a fig, we eat that. But we work on the ideal that everybody is a friend. So every animal, every plant is a friend. And I've been taught that, and I've been teaching my kids as well as other kids about the environment in that you are now and looking at it. And because the fig tree has its friend, like the wasp is one of them, the cockatoo is another one, and they're all friends, and they actually disperse the fruits to go into other parts of the rainforest. But in my journey, I suppose, as a tribal ecologist, is we have to train our younger generation to also deal with this. And this is my daughter, and she is the next generation of traditional ecologists. So she's been learning the way of the oral transformation as well, of our history and of the plants. And when we look at all the different foods in the rainforest, we look at what is edible and what is not. But we also look at how everything interconnects. We do not have gardens that people think or see as gardens, which is a bed with your garden and with the fruits that you want, or with the plants that you like to see. Our gardens were actually the rainforest itself, and we have animals such as the cassowary, the scrub hen, and the scrub turkey, who are our gardeners. They actually help to propagate the plants in the area by transmittal of their digestive system. So the cassowary would actually end up planting seeds that it eats, and the scrub turkey will come along and actually aerate the ground floor and actually make it possible for the seeds to grow and to regenerate. But if they are not there, then we lose the rainforest, and we lose these food sources, and we also lose the native animals. Currently, I suppose, if
people know about North Queensland, we get regular cyclones every year. The biggest one, I suppose, that everybody would know of late is Yasi, which was one of the biggest cyclones. I think in the world it was bigger than Katrina that was actually over in America. So it was quite large. And but luckily it missed Cairns and went down towards Innisfail. Even though it missed Innisfail, the wind still actually damaged it. But the rainforest was damaged by this. We actually set out to get a lot of those plants and seeds and started collecting them to actually regrow the bushfoods back into the rainforest. So the rainforest wouldn't die and also the animals wouldn't die. So when going out to look at the rainforest, we started collecting a whole group of seeds that we utilize in the rainforest, not only for our benefit, but also for the benefit of the animals and the native animals that are there. So this is the collection of those food sources. And the other tree that I was walking past, just to give you in regards to size, was the Gimor fig, which grows a lot taller and not actually out like some of the strangler figs. And there's 4 varieties of fig trees, and this is only just one of them. We also have a variety of macadamia, and this is a macadamia nut from our region. Now, quite a few of the macadamias are poisonous, and some are edible. And these ones here are edible, and we've been eating them for thousands of years. But in regards to the pollinating of some of the figs and some of these plants, there are certain native species that we require. One of them is the native honeybee. And if the native honeybee dies, the rainforest dies, because the Asian bee and the English bee, their bum's too big, just to put it literally. So they cannot go down to get the pollen, and so they can't pollinate all of the flowers that are native to this area. So we have a requirement, because we're custodians of the rainforest, to look after it and try to replant, and also look at saving a lot of the native honeybees as well, to actually help to pollinate these species. The other species is wasps. I know a lot of people think, wow, no, dangerous, bees are dangerous, wasps are dangerous. The native honeybee is actually stingless, so you will not get stung by it. With some of the fig, they have a wasp species, which is a black wasp that doesn't sting also. But you'll always see it, and it's a friend of the fig tree. The other fig trees, some of the strangler figs, are actually, their friend is a gold wasp. Now that wasp does sting. And if you have a look at some of the mangrove plants, their friend is the paper wasp, which also stings. But the paper wasp helps the environment of the mangroves. So we try to teach our younger generation, and also some of the other ecologists around our region, about the different foods and the different varieties of plants. This is one of our natives as well, which is a matchbox honeybee. Like our rainforest that we are in, we've got different parts of our environment as Yidinji, or the nation of Yidinji. We have rainforest, we have sclerophyll forest, we have open plains, and we also have coastal lands. So our knowledge has to be diverse in those 4 different areas. So the food source are completely different. And suppose there's my daughter again, with a guandong. Well, this is when she was much younger. So we were taught from that age, when we were crawling around, what food to put in our mouth and which one we couldn't put in our mouth. So my journey with my kids was the same. So the guandongs that you see there in front of Louie is showing her that that plant, that nut is good to eat, so she eats those. And so since she was younger, she was brought up with that, and I was teaching her the different smells of different plants, so she knows which ones are which. She knows which ones are dangerous and which ones aren't so dangerous. But our food source is what you see, and a lot of these here now. The plant that you see on your left is a wild ginger. There's a lot of native wild gingers in the rainforest that a lot of people still aren't aware of, and haven't been used. And we do use it, and a lot of people don't. We use the leaves to wrap up fish and other animal species to get the flavor into the meat. And we also use the bulb of these plants as well, that we can use for medicinal purposes. So a lot of our plants can both be eaten or help you survive, not just by eating them, but also if you have cuts and bruises. So it's very vital for us to actually still maintain that balance. So we went on a journey to actually start to collect a lot of those plants and start to propagate them. So we started a backyard nursery and looked at growing these species of plants. Now this is only a collection of some that we've collected, we've grown and actually replanted them back into the rainforest. Because one thing we need is, and to survive, is just not food for ourselves, but food for the native animals. This program, what we're doing as Abriculture, is looking at replanting some of the natives, hence the name at the, in the front, natives, planting natives. So a lot of the blackbirds are out in the bush planting these rainforest species. Anyway, I'll take it away from that. I suppose I should leave it there. It's better than watching that. The screen. You're better off watching this one. I'll get back up there again. I'll put my daughter up there. But with the knowledge of food and transferring of food, there's a different variety and more varieties in the rainforest. We have our peppers. We also have a lot of beans that we use and we cook with. We also have a lot of plants that could be mixed in sauces as well, like the berries. And we have a variety of berries that can be used. We have a variety of native guandongs as well as native guavas. We also have the fig, the banana fig, as well as the bush banana. A lot of these varieties of plants at present time have not been cultivated in a sense of agriculture, but we do it in a sense of agriculture. But I suppose the main thing that we look at with agriculture is just the relationship between people, plants, and the animals, and to keep that consistency. The way we've kept it traditionally was we had songs, and we had a song line. So every song line had a relationship with an animal and also with a native tree or a plant. So for us to consistently know that how and everything coexists with each other, we sang a song. So we'd sing, now, with that song, I'll be telling you about a certain tree which we use to make boomerangs, but then also that tree is connected with certain animals. Now, Jurulu is one of them, which is a pigeon that actually flies around. And so we have a long association with song lines that continue, because we did not write down anything on paper, so we kept on singing songs. So that was just one of the songs. The other song that I used, is another song line that tells us about that journey of one animal to a plant, and how it kept on going throughout connection to other countries in Australia. And we now are teaching some of the younger generation. My daughter's school that she goes to at childcare, we've set up a program where the kids are learning about the environment through stories and are learning about the food sources. We teach them about the different snakes as well, and also how the ecology all fits together through friendship and keep that friendship going. So with our traditional ecologist and with Western ecologists, we're looking to make the environment more natural than what it is today. I was just looking just outside the window here, and I see a lot of varieties of pandanus, as well as the different varieties of palm. When I walked in here, I also saw foxtail palms as well. Now, we use the pandanus as well. That's just straight here in front of me that I can see. We use a lot of it to weave baskets, but when it fruits, we also eat the nuts out of it. You squeeze that plant, and you can also make a nice refreshing drink. And so our food forest that is out there is something similar to a supermarket. So if you go to a supermarket, you'll look at different varieties of foods, and that's how ours is with the rainforest. And what we look at with our food source and our different plants is also to do with medicinal parts of it. I'm going to ask people if they want to ask any questions, if they want to. But in regards to foods and traditional bush foods and that, we are looking to replant a lot of our rainforest plants back into the rainforest, so people can, I suppose, reap the rewards of what has been there. And some of the restaurants are cottoning on to a lot of our traditional bush foods and are using it in their cooking now. I think some of the master chefs are doing it. We went to a restaurant last night and they actually used a variety of certain bush foods as well. And with cooking, I know I had a conversation because my ancestry, or also one of my great grandfathers, is Chinese. So, and I actually was looking at how, because when I actually injured myself during football, and my grandmother told me to go and see this old traditional herbalist who was Chinese, and this was before, I suppose nowadays everybody's into naturopath and natural remedies. And what I did was went there because my grandmother told me to, and I waited. And instead of being given tablets to take if you were to go to a chemist or a doctor, he actually came out with a couple of bark in a paper bag and also a couple of mushrooms. And I thought, wow, this old fellow is the same like my other grandfather who was Aboriginal. Because he did the same thing when I was sick, and he gave me what is traditional tribal medicine. So I had a mixture of both sides, which was the Chinese side of getting myself better, but also the Aboriginal side of getting myself better. And today, with my stroke that I had, I've just been trying to eat a lot of my traditional bush foods to get me better. I actually spent 3 months in hospital. I couldn't walk, couldn't even get out of bed. And then I spent another 6 months in a wheelchair. And since then, I started walking with the cane, so about a year. So now I've been walking with a walking stick, and hopefully by the end of this year, I'll be running the 100 meters and representing Australia or something like that. But look, I'd like to say thank you. But in regards to bush foods and then keeping it, and we all have to look out the environment, whether you're doing agriculture or whether you're doing agriculture. The main thing should be on the focus of maintaining the equilibrium in the environment that we live in. So if people are looking at food sources and how we do it, with agriculture at the moment we're looking at doing aquaponics as well, where we're actually looking at doing the bush foods and having the fish that we eat as well as a source of actually continuing without using any fertilizers. And when we look to replant back into the rainforest, we do not use any fertilizers to help it grow. The natural fertilizers are the animals that actually walk the rainforest to help regenerate and revegetate those different food sources. And hopefully we're looking at changing the landscape of people's houses, because one of the things that we're working with a building company in Cairns is actually landscaping their gardens so that they have natural food sources there, and so people can have a tree in the background that will actually help the glider possums and also to help the tree kangaroo. And then hopefully the environment will all work together and food will be plentiful. But I'd like to say thank you and enjoy today. And today is all about food. And I'm just going to leave you with this small video, if I can get it working for you. It's just what I said previously, and it's on our website. So if you just look up abriculture.com, you can check our website out. And I'm probably going to have to ask Jazz to give me a hand to try to get this going. I'll be into a while. That's to play.
Abriculture is looking at regrowing traditional foods, plants, practically into the forest, but actually we're out here and we see the forest, the rainforest, because whether it's to do with the rainforest, revegetating the rainforest, or to actually look at revitalizing our people, because agriculture is looking at replanting. And I suppose the thing is with traditional foods helps us with our digestive system. Western foods doesn't have. Well, how do we do that? It's actually going back out to the rainforest and collecting a lot of the traditional food foods, a lot of the wild foods that are out there, native foods, and actually growing them from seeds to plant it, trying to rodents, the integrated numbers back into the rainforest. Plant, there also is a story of sunlight. So, and with that, we go back into the sunlight and also back to the stories to bring them back to, for want of better words, to fruition. Because if we can bring it back, the plants come back and the animals come back, so the native animals come back to the country as well. And it also brings the traditional people from that area back to regather a lot of their traditional foods. Well, traditional ecologist is not one where you actually go to school and learn about it, but it's actually learning through your uncles, your aunties, your grandfather, your grandmother, and they actually take you through the stories and through the event and the baby to pick up certain foods and eat it, and then learn what that tree looks like once it's grown, we grow.
So I'd like to say thank you, Daz, for asking me to be here as well, and Marcus as well. And like the end of the song says, everybody got to learn sometimes. And I think it's about time now we start the journey to learn about the environment that we live in. Thank you. So if anyone does have any questions.
Yeah, we do still have some time for questions.
Do you have time for questions?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Would like to start.
Just first off,
Maybe we don't need the microphone. Is it loud? Yeah.
So, I'd love to know where you're actually based. Are you in Cairns or in?
Yeah, I'm in Cairns, in Mount Sheridan.
Oh, okay. So where was that river that you were sitting by in the film?
That's that river is actually Russell River.
Yeah.
The Russell River. So yeah, very pristine, and we try to keep it that way. But it's not our traditional country as it is.
Yeah. And the school where your daughter is, the preschool that they're doing the program,
It's
that's
Bentley Park.
in the
In
park.
Cairns,
It's
yeah.
wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So we're trying to train not just indigenous kids like I was saying,
Yeah.
where we all live in Australia, so we've all got to know how to look after it. So we're teaching non-indigenous kids as well
Yes.
to better know the environment that they live in.
Yeah. And at a great age to be teaching.
Yeah, no, and that's where we start from.
Yes.
Is from that age.
Yeah. That's very good.
Is the regeneration work that you're talking about, where it's sort of, and you're at Mount Sheridan, so you're in sort of the urban part, so you're talking about regenerating the urban rainforest. It's just that idea that, you know, a cyclone comes through and you need to replant, that rainforest also can take care of itself sometimes in some environments. So is it really replanting in more the urban landscapes where that normal kind of process wouldn't happen after a cyclone?
No, it's actually regenerating back in the rainforest as well. The cassowary, as you saw in the film, is actually starting to die out. You don't have a large number of cassowaries. And to stop the cassowary from trying to forage in the urban areas, we try to keep them back in the rainforest. And the only way we can do that is by replanting back into the rainforest. So we're trying to keep them captured in their own space. So as soon as they come out, they actually start getting attacked by dogs, and the dogs kill most of the gardeners, which is the cassowary, the scrub hen, and the scrub turkey, and also the cats. You know, because we've got a problem with feral cats as well. It kills a lot of the birds, and we're just trying to keep them going. The glider squirrel that you saw there, glider possum as well, is one of our pollinators as well, because the fur gets on them as well, and the tongue is quite long and actually put it down into the rainforest as well. But they're actually becoming a rare and endangered species, just like the cassowary. But we are landscaping the urban landscape as well. Our next project is actually planning up the golf course. The golf course is going to stay the same. We're replanting a lot of their waterways and we're setting up a wetlands as well.
So I can ask you, to what extent are the practices of agriculture either secret or sacred? Can anyone come to you and study? Or is there some sort of limitation with regards to the cultural background that you come from?
Yeah, no, well, at the moment we're very limited. We actually do, I suppose, require people with Western trained knowledge, but it takes a period of time. Look, like I was saying before, my wife's Irish, Jenny, and she came and we've been together now for 6 years, but it took my mother about 3 years before she told her anything about any plants. Plants around the place, so she thought my mum didn't like it. She doesn't like it, but I suppose patience is the thing. If people want to be trained by traditional ecologists, it'll take time. The reason why is we understand that people are doing research, whether it be a PhD student. And the thing that happens quite a lot with our people is intellectual property and intellectual property rights being taken away. And if people are there to help with keeping the environment together, that's fine. But once the knowledge goes from there into a book or into a paper, like a lot of PhD students would write a paper up if a professor says just do this.
Yeah.
And what happens then, the student gets marked on it, and then the paper becomes that of the professor. And his tag is actually put on it, and he is then the owner of that knowledge. And the person who the PhD student got that information out of is not even known about or not heard about. And I suppose that's something that our people are really, not that we don't like it, it's just that we get no remunerations about it, we get no acknowledgement out of it, and if there's an acknowledgement of it, we would trust the system a lot more better.
Yeah, there are some very naughty professors out there. Have you been approached by, say, James Cook University to try and integrate some of these practices into landscape architecture curriculum or agricultural curriculum?
Yeah, but I haven't. I suppose I've got a fear of James Cook University because of the name as well. So
It's called a JCU.
Yes. And I suppose a lot of us do have that fear that, James Cook will come again and steal our stuff again. So, and I suppose that's why we have that. We do work with, and are working with UNU, United Nations University, which have a better reputation in regards to intellectual property.
So what university?
United Nations,
Oh, okay.
UNU, yeah. Because we put things in place, but we would work with universities, we would work with QUT as well. If there are students here that would do that, but we just need the acknowledgement as well.
Sure.
Because when my partner and I go out and do talks and we're there together, I'm looked as just a black fella in the room. So, and my partner, because she's a Western trained ecologist, and she's got an alphabet behind her name. You know, she's got a master's degree as well, you know, like, and so she's got a BA, master's, all of this. And I just don't have any alphabet after my name. So people look at me differently. But the knowledge that I do have, and she says it with the people that we talk to, if you're talking about rainforest stuff, she just says, you need to talk to this guy here. Because she doesn't know rainforest. But she learnt from my mum after 3 years. My mum started to take her out into the rainforest, started to show her different plants, gave her a look at some, started to show her how to weave baskets, all of this sort of knowledge. But it doesn't come straight away. But in regards to research, we would put university, but I suppose the thing is there has to be an agreement in place that we could take students out, teach them a bit about the rainforest, because at the end of the day, the Australian environment needs it. And I suppose people haven't really tasted the native foods from here in all its qualities. And that's one thing, which is crazy, that just looking at the kangaroo in Australia now is being made available for people to eat, as well as the crocodile. But previously, it was dog food. So kangaroos, only because America and Canada actually started to export and import it over to there, that kangaroo meat and crocodile meat became popular. And now Australians are starting to eat kangaroo meat. So, and it's a lot more leaner. It's leaner than any other beef or meat that you have available out there. So if you're looking at lean food and you want to keep away from fatty foods, kangaroo is an excellent. But yeah, but we've got no issues with teaching and training people.
Can I have a question?
Yeah, I think, thank you for the talk. I enjoyed speaking with you last night. It's nice to see kind of the whole story.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm curious about is, you say that the practices and knowledge that you have are, inherited over thousands of years, right? But I'm curious to what extent things are sort of changing, right? So where I live, with global warming, we're already seeing species moving, right? So species that have been in place for thousands of years are moving their habitats north or south, depending. This past year, the salmon migration has changed radically along the northwest coast of North America, right? Plants that have been growing in certain elevations for thousands of years are no longer, they're moving up and down. So I'm curious, are you seeing any of those changes? Are you concerned with those kinds of changes?
Yeah, no, we are concerned about the changes. I suppose the difference with changes that are happening over here is because people have transported a lot of plants which are native to Australia, but not native to a different area. So we've got plants that have come up from New South Wales that people put into their gardens up in Queensland. And the native wildlife that are in New South Wales now just fly and keep flying up north because they know that some of their food sources are up here. So you're going to get an overpopulation of a lot of those animals starting to come here. I noticed when you walk around here, there was something that I'm trying to remember everybody's name, but we talked about when we walked about the ibis, and there's a lot of ibises that are here. Now, this region probably wouldn't have had as many ibises here previously, but because a lot of the foxtail palms that you got, and a lot of the golden palms that are here as well, and some of the orchards that are here, it helped them to come from North Queensland down to southeast, and down to the south here. So their migration pattern is changing, but not through climate change. It's changing because of transportation of different plants in different areas. But the climate is affecting that change as well. And we notice at different times of the year, because we have 6 seasons, not 4 seasons. And so we notice the change in the patterns of all of the different animal species, whether it be ants and wasps, any of those. But just to answer your question, yes, we are noticing that change, but we've got a lot of the changes, not so much climate change, but transportation of different native species of plants in different areas. And now the animals, such as the birds, know where they can collect food, so they're just going around and just about can fly anywhere around Australia now, when they would probably be most likely confined to one area. Now they're not. They actually can travel all around Australia and actually start to help regenerate the rest of Australia with different native plants, I suppose.
Any other questions? Yes?
Can I just ask a few questions about your multilinguality, which I find fascinating? So
Yeah.
can you still speak your 4 native languages? Do you still use them?
Yeah.
And are they as expansive a language as, say, English is for you?
Well, put it this way, in one of my languages, we say for my hair, munga. In another one of my language, there's manga. But munga and manga is totally different.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, but it's because manga in another language means number 2 when you go to the
Oh,
toilet.
okay, yes.
So you have to watch and where you say it at different times. So I try to keep myself versed in my languages. It's
Yes.
different from further down south, I suppose, where a lot of language hasn't kept on flowing. It hasn't been lost because it is still there.
Yes.
So, but I still maintain it. So in my, I suppose as Yidin, I'd say Kunghanji to you. In Kunghanji, I'd say Yanawakana to you. In Kunghanji, I'd say Garamana. But all the different languages is different. And I suppose I thank my dad and my mum for that, because every time it came to school, holidays, I actually went to all my different grandmothers. So I spent time in different places, up the Cape and up around Cairns.
When I say expansive, I mean, you wouldn't ever have to do a presentation like this in one of your Aboriginal languages. So what I mean is it a smaller vocabulary you're dealing with as well? Smaller topics of conversation in Aboriginal language?
No, it would be the same.
Yeah.
But I suppose the thing would be that the different Aboriginal groups that I talk to would exactly know what I was talking about.
Right, okay.
Because I'd be saying to them,
Sorry, we've got to move on to the program. I want to allow one more question.
But
If you have any more language-specific questions, maybe in the break you can
Yes.
ask as well.
I'm just wondering, is there a network of, because you're working in the area that you are in, is there a network around the country, or you?
Yeah, no, we're building that network now. We're actually working with quite a few people from down this area, because I know a lot of people probably maybe aware of some of the traditional festivals that were happening here previous to Whitewater's coming here. And we're actually trying to maintain those different things. So we have a network of traditional ecologists within the Queensland coast, but we want to go globally as well as nationally as well, to try to encourage a lot of people.
Yeah. Must admit, sometimes it's a bit funny. Recently there was a radio program on finger limes, which are native to this area. As if these guys that are now cultivating here invented them.
Yeah.
actually, able to be cultivated for profit.
Yeah,
As
I think
well, because there's not that many.
no, there's a lot of, I suppose there's a lot of plants that are out there that can be cultivated in an agricultural sort of sense. But we prefer it to be in an agricultural sense.
Sure.
Where it's back in the rainforest, and if you do a harvest, you do a wild harvest instead of an agricultural harvest, because you're going to contain a certain species. And what farmers normally do is, if any animals start to become invasive to them, they start shooting the animals, because their main crop and their most commercial additive crop is the one that they're growing, not the animals that are going to come and eat the fruits of the tree.
It might be a nice vision to think of, Australians not only asking for organic food, but in the future there might be, a trademark for agricultural food that is available for us to then also purchase and consume and enjoy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this talk. It was very exciting.
It was definitely one of the most inspiring and memorable talks that I've heard in a long time, and I'm sure you would agree. And this is a little thanks from B1 Third, and you met Jack last night, and there's a little neighbourhood honey from West End. So thank you very much.